It says what page it's on. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start a review. Najib, I can help you with that before you leave. I put some problems together to get you ready for the test. We'll just work them out. I know we didn't actually have you come in and do a warm-up, but why don't you do this as a warm-up right now? Solve for n. So take out a note paper, or you can work on a whiteboard. If you have your own pens, there's not a lot of whiteboard pens right now. Does anybody have an answer? Okay, Olivia, what'd you get?
N equals 3.
N equals 3. Natalie, is that what you got? Okay, so what'd you do, Olivia?
Well, I grouped negative 4n and 2n.
Good, so that's negative 4 and positive 2.
So that's negative 2.
Negative 2n.
And then I wrote that plus 7 equals 1.
Good.
And then I did minus 7 from both sides.
Nice.
And then I had negative 2n equals negative 6.
Good. Negative 2n equals negative 6.
And then I divided.
We're trying to solve for n, right?
Yep. And then I divided negative 2 by negative 2. And 6.
Divide negative 2 on both sides, right? So you have n equals 3. Positive 3. We won't be checking everything today, but just a reminder, when you take a test, it's really nice if you take the time to check. Maybe not as you go along on every problem, but if you, when you have time. So I'm going to move this over. So I'm putting my n value of 3 in here. So negative 4 times 3 plus 7 plus 2 times my n value of 3. And I want to see if I get 1. So this is negative 12 plus 7, and that's 6. That's negative 5 plus 6. That's positive 1. It checks. So don't forget, you'll have to do some checks. I'll ask you to do a couple checks, but not all of them, but you can check everything if you have time. Okay? So let's go to the solving. The reason I had the same problem twice, I'm not going to do every problem like this today, but I want you to remember there's more than one way to do this. Okay? Zig, what would you do?
So you, on the right side of 6h, you want to get the 2 like terms on one side.
Right, so maybe the h terms it sounds like you're talking about? Okay.
And so what I did was, for the 6h, did minus 6h.
Good. So one method would be to move the h's to the left.
And that would be negative 1h.
These cancel.
Equals negative 16.
Right.
And then you do plus 9.
Right.
And then plus 9. So it'd be negative h equals 7. Negative 7.
Right. And remember, this is like a 1 here, so we have to isolate h. So we're going to divide by negative 1. And you get h equals 7.
So I did minus 5h.
Right. That's why I put this up here. So over here, you could always think of this as a positive 5 and do minus 5h. Some people like that better because you have a positive h value. Yeah. But it works both ways. So negative 9 equals negative 16 plus 1h, right? So that works too. So since this is a negative 16 here already, you're going to add 16 to both sides. And you have a little less negative stuff to think about. But you can get to the same answer 2 ways. Like I said, you don't want to do 2 ways on every problem during a test. But once in a while, it's nice to reaffirm that you can do more than one way to solve a problem. Any questions on that? So that's an example of variables on both sides. That would be a good test problem. Okay, this is an example of distributive property. And again, we've already practiced doing this 2 ways, so you can pick a way. So go ahead and solve that. Does anybody have an answer yet? If you check with the person next to you. Okay, let's start with Natalie. What did you do first?
First, I did, oh wait, okay. So first I did -2 and minus, oh no, plus 60.
She used the distributive property, so -2, excuse me, 2m. A negative times a negative is a positive, so she said plus 60. That way works, nice. Then what would you do? You've got variables on both sides, right? You can't divide, right? Because you have this here, right? You still have additions on one side. Okay, so Lexi, you had your hand raised. Can you take the next step?
Well, after I did the same thing, I added 6 and to both sides.
Okay. And
But then the 6
then you have a 0 on the right. Wouldn't it be easier? So, Lexi, that actually works, but I think if you think about, like what Adam's saying, you already have, you have the constant and the variable here, and just a variable here. So maybe you just want to bring, oh, that's a big eraser, the variable over to this side. It would be quicker. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could just move this over. You see the advantage of that? It's less steps. And this crosses out. Now, however, if you had gone your route on a test, with extra steps, you could still get to the same answer. Okay? So, Natalie, this is when you can use division.
Yeah,
Because that's the opposite of the multiplication operation there. So I'm going to divide both sides by -4. So I get -15 is equal to m. Raise your hand if you had that. Okay, good. So any questions for those of you that didn't?
at first I messed up.
But do you see your...
How would you divide it? How do you get negative?
Why would I divide by 4? Because you have -4 times m.
How?
So because -6 and a +2 make a -4. Think about it. Are we there? Okay, so solving's definitely on your test tomorrow. But there's also simplifying. Are we okay on this one that we just finished? Simplifying sometimes can be harder for people because you feel like you have to have a numeric answer. But simplify just means collect up all the like terms. Okay? So try that one. Sean?
What was the answer to?
Okay, so some of you have 9y minus 18x. Nandib, what'd you do first?
Should I use the distributive property? I did 2 times y.
Okay, so I'm going to bring the 7y down. 2y.
Minus 6x.
Good. Minus 6x.
Minus 12x.
Minus 12x.
And put together y. 7y plus 2y.
Okay, so these are next to each other, so that's nice and easy. 9y.
And then I put together negative 6x minus 12x.
Right, so it's like a -6, take away 12. Exactly. Negative or subtract 18x. Good job. Okay? So there's simplifies on the test. Right? So let's take a look at also word problems. So as you guys can see, I'm just doing samples of things that you know that you need to study. But don't forget, there's lots of other resources, right? Like you can look at more simplifies from the sections that the test is on. Section 2.1, 2.2, 2, 3, and 2, 4. We did a quiz on it, and you could study your quiz problems. That's what I would suggest, is you would study some quiz problems and make sure that you know you're going to have simplifies, solves, and some word problems. Okay, so let's read this. Kenneth went to the candy store. He bought 3 Snickers bars for $1.25 each. He also bought a handful of Zots. Okay, in all he spent $4.80, so that's his total when you see the word all, in all. If one Zot cost 7 cents, how many Zots did he buy? So what I want you guys to do is define a variable. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to set up, define a variable, and write an equation. Okay, so you might not be done with the problem, but hopefully by this point you've defined a variable, and you maybe have set up an equation. Any volunteers? Okay, Skylar.
For the kind of variable, I did n
Okay.
equals, I did n equals number of Zots.
The number of Zots, because the question is how many Zots did he buy? So we have to, that's what we're trying to figure out. So n equals the number of Zots. Anything else? Did you get anything else?
For the equation, I did 3 times 1.25.
Okay, she said 3 times $1.25 because there's 3 Snicker bars and each one costs $1.25. Good.
And then I did plus point, 0.07 times.
Yeah, so
07n.
because we don't know how many Zots, so for every 1 Zot it costs 7 cents,
Equals 4 cents.
$4.80.
So you don't have to have n. You have different.
You could have a different variable. I like n better than z for me because my z's and my 2's start to look alike.
And
But you have a choice. Would you like to take the first step? What would you do?
I have the answer. I got 15.
Okay, did anybody else get 15?
What I
Okay, what's the first step? Let's just go first step.
well you put it what you did 3 times 1.25.
Right.
Which would be 375. Yeah, 375. Then do 4.80 minus 375.
Okay, slow down. So let's just do one step at a time. Just because not everybody's there yet. Okay. Do you guys understand the first step? Okay, Elena, what would you do next?
I did minus 0.07, but that's
So you,
the wrong step.
that's the wrong step because remember you want to get rid of everything by the end, but you get rid of the things that are farthest away first because you're backwards order of operations. So try that again.
Minus 3.
Yeah, minus 3.75. So maybe identifying the variable by circling it can help you slow down that thought process. Okay, so Emilio, when I do this, what do I get on the right hand side? Okay, so 105. And over here, those cancel and I have 0.07 n. Okay, so again we have opposite operations here, right?
That's
Change that to 7. Subtract. Okay,
What is it?
right.
$4.80 or $4.08?
Did I write it down wrong?
I think I did.
$4.80. Okay, so Xander, what would you do next?
Well, I just got kind of first I made about this whole thing. So then I just figured out how many times 7 went to 105.
Yeah, and I would do the exact same thing. I mean, I write it with the decimals,
You do 105.
but really when you're doing 105, $1.05 divided by 7 cents, you could just think of it as 105 pennies divided by 7 pennies, right? So 7 into 105. So 1 and then 7 goes into 35. 5, right? But remember, we were in pennies, right? Oh, well, so it doesn't matter there, does it? So it's just because of the variable, it's the number of zots, right? Sorry about that. So it's 15. So always go back and reread the question, because as you guys just saw, I almost answered in the wrong units, right? When I go back and read the question, I'm defining a variable. My number n is the number of zots. So my answer is he bought 15 zots. Does that make sense? Units are important. Put the units.
What if you don't write that out? What if you just write Z? Like I did Z. So if you just, what if you just write Z equals 15 zots?
15 zots is good. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's do one more, and then it's going to be about time to go. Just a second, Nadiv. This problem here, the sum of 3 consecutive odd numbers, so we talked about this the other day, is negative 309. You have to define a variable, write an equation, and solve your equation. I'm going to go back to the other page. Nadiv, did you have a question on that? I'm going to pause here. How many people need help getting this one started? Okay, let's just do it together. So, remember odd numbers, if we just look at odd numbers, be them negative or positive, negative 5, negative 3, negative 1, positive 3. Those are consecutive odds. How far apart are they? 2. Think about the problem before you start, okay? So I'm going to let n equal the first number.
Oh yeah, first number is plus.
Doesn't matter what it is. That's just the first number. So the number after that is 2 bigger, right? Right? Because I'm adding 2 to get from one number to another. Raise your hand if that makes sense. Okay, so Vanessa, can you set it up at all for me now? You say n plus. What would the second number be? Let Vanessa answer. How far apart are they? 2. Right. Did you guys hear? Some of you are saying n plus 1, but it's not n plus 1. It's n plus 2. Good job, Vanessa. Okay. So think about a list over here. The first number, you might want to do some scratch work before you finish, is n. The second number is going to be n plus 2. But there's 3 of them. So what's the third number, Vanessa? N plus 4, right? Okay, let's let her way go. So n plus 4. Those are your 3 numbers. And what are those 3 consecutive numbers equal to? Right, negative 309. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if that makes sense. Okay. So then we're going to solve it. So we don't need the parentheses here. The parentheses are to show you there's 3 numbers. But really, that's just the same as n plus n, which is how many n's? 3n. And then 2 plus 4 is 6. That's equal to negative 309. So I can subtract. What am I going to subtract? What haven't I heard from David?
6.
Yeah, I want to get this over there, over here, right? So I'm going to subtract 6. So when you do that, David, what do you get?
Negative 315.
Right. And then you have multiply here, right? So what do you have to do, David? Divide by 3. And when you do that, Matt?
Then it's then n equals
You need to write it out.
105.
Okay, good. Right. I wasn't sure if you needed to write it out. So
Is it negative 300?
it's negative 105. Does that make sense? So what's the question though? Because I don't know if I've answered the question. What are the numbers? Have I answered the question? No. Sig, so what's the answer to the question?
It's 101, 102, 105.
No, because the first number is negative 105. So I didn't hear any negatives in there. So Sean?
Negative 105, negative 107, and negative 109.
Add 2 to negative 105.
Oh, negative 103.
Negative 103. Add 2 again.
Negative 109.
Negative 101.
Question was odd number equals 309. Positive.
Negative 309.
I didn't see it at the beginning either.
You didn't see the negative?
I thought it was 3.
Okay.
Because how I did it was, since it's 309, and there's 3 consecutive numbers, so it has to be 100 and something
Okay.
in the beginning, and then I try to find what would equal up to 9.
Right.
So I started with 1, and then 1, and then I figured the next odd number was 3 and 5, and then that worked.
Okay, so let's listen to what he just said. That's kind of a mental math approach, which is great because then you can do the problem in your head that this is an algebra test. And so part of the points are going to be defining a variable. The next part of the points are writing the equation. And the final part of the points are getting the answer. So if this were like a 5-point problem, you would probably get 2 of the points, but not all the other points. So you get points for the correct answer, but we also are testing you, can you do the algebra? So you really maybe want to look at this again, look at the examples in the book, and just a quick reminder on studying. You want to study, of course, these examples are good examples. Take out the yellow quiz when you get home that you have graded and passed back. That would be good to study because there's more examples from the quiz that you guys did a great job on that you don't want to forget about. And, you could look at sample problems in the book.